Hey everybody, Eric Grenier here, and welcome to the 12th episode of the Writ Podcast. We're almost there. It's the last weekend before Election Day, and parties are scrambling to convince those last undecideds and to make sure their supporters get out to the polls. It's looking like it will go down to the wire, so to give you an election night viewing guide, I'm joined again by Philippe J. Fournier. He runs the website 338canada.com as a columnist for Maclean's and L'Actualité. Hey Philippe.
Bonsoir Eric, it's really good to speak with you again.
How are you feeling with just a few more days?
A mix of emotions, I believe. Of course, I'm really tired because, as you know, I'm doing a lot of media, and I think I took too much on writing for 2 magazines, doing three TV networks. Maybe that was a bit too much, but it's a lot of fun. But also, and we'll get into this a bit later, but I am a bit nervous. There's a lot of uncertainty in this one, and so. You know, it's not like the Saskatchewan election where we will call it at 8:15 or something. This could be a long night. So I'm a bit nervous, I have to admit.
Yeah, you know, I've been doing a lot of elections now. I think I've gotten over 30 or something. And
Wow.
After you've been through Alberta 2012, BC 2013, a couple other ones, you don't get nervous anymore. It's gonna be right. It's gonna be wrong. What can you do?
Yeah, I have to say the most relaxing one for me was Alberta 2019. I had 82 out of 87 seats, and of the 5 that I missed, 3 were within the margin of error. So it was absolutely fantastic that night. I was popping the champagne, very happy. But then, you know, I know at some point it's going to be a hard one, so I don't know which one. But federal one, I mean, usually the federal ones, the polls are pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Historically, I know 2011 was a freak election, but the polls were not that bad. So I'm just nervous. So we'll see.
Well, it's a healthy nervousness then.
That's right.
So what we'll do, we have a little game we're going to play later, an over/under kind of game. But first, I wanted to go across the country, kind of give people an idea of how we're seeing this race shaping up, kind of the races to watch, what we don't know. So we'll start with where the polls will close first. We'll spend not too much time on this, but at 7 p.m. Eastern time, the polls in Newfoundland and Labrador close. What are you thinking for Newfoundland and Labrador? I'm not seeing a huge amount of change in the current state.
And just so we're sure, people who are listening to this is Friday. We're recording this Thursday night. So in case the numbers change dramatically over the weekend, this is Thursday night. So,
yeah.
Okay. So in Newfoundland, I see a Liberal sweep. I would be very surprised if they drop one. I know the NDP won St. John East last time, but that was more of a Jack Harris thing than an NDP thing. I see a Liberal sweep in Newfoundland. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. The NDP has a decent candidate there. I can't recall the name, but it's someone from the labor unions in Newfoundland. So maybe she can take a bit of the vote that Jack Harris would have taken with him. But I think that it'll either be 6 or 7 Liberals out in Newfoundland. I'm not sure we're going to learn much about the results there.
No, and we seldom do. I think didn't Michael Ignatieff won Newfoundland and Labrador?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think it was. I think it was the only province that he actually did win. So
okay, so if Justin Trudeau wins Newfoundland and Labrador, he will end up like Michael Ignatieff. Okay, so then at 7:30, so we'll have half an hour to talk about Newfoundland and Labrador. So after that, at 7:30, the rest of the Maritimes, or I should say the Maritimes, they close. So Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and PEI. Let's just start with the smallest one, PEI. I would have thought that maybe it was going to be interesting back when the Greens were doing a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I think now it's just maybe if the Conservatives can win Egmont.
That's pretty much it. That's the only question mark, unless, again, a huge surprise. But I've spoken with people from either parties, and basically, Egmont is on the table, but the 3 others should go Liberal, barring a very big surprise. So
I saw that earlier today you posted that on your site you now have the lean and the toss-up ridings that people can go through, and I noticed that a lot of the 11 in Nova Scotia were on that list.
Yes, they were. They were.
I feel like Nova Scotia is going to be a place to watch.
Let me just pull it up here. It's going to be easier for me to comment on them. Okay, so last time, let's remember that the Liberals won 10 out of 11, but there were some close races also that the Liberals did win. The only one that they lost was West Nova. So right now I have 1, 2, 3. I have 5 out of the 11 that are toss-ups. So that's a lot. So you could see the Liberals losing a handful here, although the projection that I have right now should be around 8-3. If the Liberals have a good night, they should be able to win at least 8. I have Cumberland, Colchester, toss up with the Conservatives. I have Sydney, Victoria, and I have West Nova. Although I have to say, West Nova, there was a Main Street poll there, a local Main Street poll that had the Liberals ahead, and that it by 5 points. So of course, big margin of error with those, but still, it's not a blow up. If the Conservatives do hold on to it, I think it's going to be a close one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think any of the rural ridings in Nova Scotia, I think could be ones to watch that the Liberals might not be able to hold. I'm not sure if there's any that you can really say is all that safe. Maybe you can look at a King's Hants or a riding like Halifax West, maybe they can hold on to without any trouble. But, I'm not sure. I'm not very confident about what the results will be in the 2 Cape Breton ridings.
No, you're correct.
And, when you see how well the PCs just did, it makes you wonder, what is the NDP going to be able to win Halifax? I don't know. There's a couple ridings there that could be a little bit surprising on election night. I'm not sure what to make out of Nova Scotia. And if we see good results for the NDP in Halifax, good results for the Conservatives, maybe that's a sign that the Liberals will have a little bit of trouble.
That's true. I mean, would you agree that in all four Atlantic provinces, Halifax is the most likely for the NDP?
Yeah, I would think so. I guess St. John's East as well, you would say maybe, because they have more of a base there.
Right.
But yeah, I would say if they're going to win 2 seats in Atlantic Canada, it'd be those two. And I'm not sure. Maybe Halifax would be more likely than St. John's East. I'm not sure at this stage, but I don't know. I am curious to see how well the NDP is going to do, because they're doing pretty well in the polls.
They are.
Are they going to keep that vote on election day?
They are, but again, and this is not necessarily new, but we see that the NDP is popular with young people and very unpopular with the 55 or 60 and over. And so, there might be long lines. We know that in many places in the country, there are no polls open on campuses. So if that young vote doesn't get out as much as it did in the last 2 elections, I think I saw a figure. I don't have it in front of me, but I think in the 2011 election, the turnout among people under 30 was about 40%. And Harper won a majority. So if that young vote doesn't get out, the NDP could have a really rough night and underperform their polls.
Let's move on to New Brunswick. For some reason, I feel like the Conservatives could maybe do more in Nova Scotia than New Brunswick. I'm not sure. I think that they do have a shot of picking up Fredericton. They were pretty close last time. I don't know. I think, though, with the Green vote probably going mostly over to the Liberals, that maybe they can win that one. Miramichi Grand Lake, they can maybe pick that one up. Maybe St. John Rothsay could be an interesting one. But Wayne Long, the Liberal candidate there, he's done a good job at kind of distancing himself a little bit from the Liberal Party, because he sometimes disagreed with them. So I wonder if that makes him a bit more of a local, almost like a local phenomenon. But what do you think? Do you think the Conservatives can pick up New Brunswick?
I think it could be a split, a 5-5 split. It's very possible. Of course, Fredericton will be the one to watch. I was really surprised to see the Main Street poll of Fredericton, because I thought the Greens would at least be competitive, but they were a distant third in that poll. And I'm not sure if that the poll is bad, or it's just that they really like Jenica Atwin and they figured, let's go with her. So she joined the red team. Then right now, the most likely scenario would be a 6-4 split for the Liberals, but I could see 5-5. But if you take the Atlantic region in all, I have my not projection exactly, but my breakdown would be 24 Liberal and 8 Conservative for the whole region. So if you see the Conservatives winning 10, 11, 12, it could be that their vote is really efficient. They got their vote out, and the Liberals could be on for a long night.
You are a little bit more bullish than the Conservatives than my numbers. I have 25, 6, and 1.
Oh, so and one for the NDP.
I think I have them narrowly ahead to the extent that in Halifax that it's
right. Okay, it's close. Yeah, it could be. It could happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, anyone listening, don't strategic vote based on what we're saying. Do not do that. Make up your own mind. You probably know what's going on in your riding more than we do. All right.
Or you go to 338canada.com and you click on every link to see what's happening. That's what you have to do.
You should still look at it anyway, but just don't blame us if things anyway.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
right. So what's fun if people are familiar with election nights is that there's half an hour that you get to talk about Newfoundland and Labrador. There's then 2 hours that you get to talk about Atlantic Canada, until finally the rest of the country decides to drop all of its votes on it. So at 9:30 Eastern time, Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and the North all close. And that's when we start getting dumped with a huge amount of numbers, and this is when governments can be called. So let's start in Quebec.
You just offended people from the Magdalene Islands.
That's right. Yes. Yes, there's always that one little poll that opens up on Les Îles Madeleine, and suddenly the Gaspé is,
There you go. No worries. All right. So Quebec.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like the Bloc has gotten itself back into it, but they might only just be, getting back to maybe the 30% range at best, and that I'm not seeing a huge amount of change.
Well, it's interesting because last week the narrative from most of the Québécois media was that there's going to be a Bloc, not a wave, but a tsunami, and the Bloc's going to win 50 seats like the good old days of Giuseppe. And I was like, well, if that happens, the numbers will pick it up. I mean, will the polls that we have 3 daily polls and several others that publish more than once a week. And after the English debate, and that's we're not going to talk about that. I don't want to, but after the English debate, yes, we did see a bump in the polls for the Bloc Québécois. They went from, in my model, from around 26% to 29 and 30%. And then that's it. And then it reached the ceiling. And so I think 30% in Quebec is good for the Bloc Québécois. It's just that there's no huge tsunami or wave. I think the Bloc Québécois could perhaps come close to tie the Liberals in the popular vote, but that would be their ceiling. And what I'm seeing right now is somewhere between 28 and 34 seats at best for the Bloc Québécois. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I have the same thing. I have between 26 and 34. I think they might be able to pick off, a few of the Liberal ridings, maybe. But if I had to guess, I'd say that the Liberals probably more likely to pick off a few Bloc seats, maybe here and there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, you were saying he was in Quebec, right?
Yeah, he was not only in Quebec, he was in Thérèse de Blainville, basically on the offense, right? And that's a riding just north of Montreal that the Liberals lost by 1 point last election. And so, people ask questions why he was going to Halifax playing defense, but Halifax will be close. And so it's normal that he goes, but then that he goes into suburban Montreal to pick up Bloc seat. For me, that tells me that the Liberals perhaps have numbers that show, this majority thing, it's a long shot, but it's not unfeasible. If the Liberals win 2-3 more points in the suburbs of Montreal, and we'll talk about Ontario soon, they could get to the high 160s. And if that's the case, if they have 165 or 166, it'll just be just as good as a majority. So it was very interesting to see Trudeau on the offense today.
Yeah, I think that they see that Quebec still has some opportunity for them. And, maybe it can help offset some losses that maybe they'll have in Atlantic Canada or other places. But it's interesting how we've seen the Conservative number seem to come down a little bit. And a lot of that helps the Bloc. But it hurts the Liberals a lot because there were a lot of ridings where, 5 points coming from the Bloc to the Conservatives was going to help elect a Liberal. It's a weird split that is, the kind of thing we talk about when we talk about Liberal and NDP splits. But in this case, it was working against the Liberals. Do you have the Conservatives? I think, maybe they can pick up one of the Beauport ridings, one of the two that is in Quebec City area. But I'm not sure. Earlier on in the campaign, if you told me they could win 12, 13, 14, I would have said, that makes sense. Now I think 1 or 2 gains might be the best they can do.
they received the Legault kiss of death. The vote of confidence, like in hockey, right? The general manager says, "Oh, my coach has this." I don't understand. It's so interesting because people in Quebec said when Legault endorsed O'Toole, minority O'Toole, people were saying, "Oh, look at that blue wave is coming." There was lots of talk about waves in Quebec last week, and nothing happened, except that we saw the Conservatives actually losing some ground in Quebec. They went from 21 to 19% on the average. So. The Conservatives have 10 seats in Quebec right now. 9 of them are rock solid. They're not going to move. The one that they could lose is Chicoutimi-Lapierre, Richard Martel, the hockey coach. I think I have him as a favorite, but it's this one seat that the Bloc Québécois hopes to pick up. I could see them winning Trois-Rivières. They came close last time.
Yeah.
And as you said, the two Beauports were three-way races. So in those races, you never know. Maybe a better ground game, and you have 2 more points than the others in win. So the ceiling is 14. I think it's going to be 11. So
yeah, I have the same kind of numbers for that. What about the NDP? Do you think they can win a second seat?
No chance.
You don't like Ruth Ellen Brousseau's chances?
I like her. I have met her. She's very nice. I think she would be a great MP. And I think a lot of people in that riding like her very much. It's just that after what happened in the English debate, the Bloc Québécois went up. As I said, about 4 points. They, according to the numbers, they did not win any ground game in Montreal. So that 4 points is concentrated in the regions of Quebec. And so of course, I would like to have local data with Miss Brosseau name on it instead of Mr. Singh. But I just don't see it. I see only Boulris and Rosemont et Patrie.
Yeah, I think Brousseau can win, but I don't know. I don't know. I think you might be making a good argument. The Bloc going up is going to help them in a riding like Berthier Masquinongé. Oh yeah. So, what about Maxime Bernier? What do you think?
Nope, losing by at least 10 points. He lost by 9 points last time. I think he's going to lose by more this time. Yeah. His party, the People's Party, and we'll talk about it a bit later, but the People's Party will probably quadruple its vote in percentage-wise. So that's good for them. But he went hard after the anti-vaxxers and anti-sanitary measures. And although there may be 8 to 10% of those people in the country, there's not 40% of those people in votes. So I think he will lose votes, and he will lose by a fair margin against the Conservative candidate.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of people have asked me, is he going to win? Is he going to win a seat? And I always say, well, the people who voted for him in the Beauce, he was an MP for a long time. His father was an MP before that. The Bernier name meant something. These weren't all people who believed in the mission of the People's Party. And now that it has gone over more to a place where it's getting a lot of support from, anti-vaxxers, anti-vaccine mandates, people that don't like lockdowns, I have no reason to believe that there's a lot of them that live in the Beauce. There's nothing particularly different about that riding that would have a big concentration of those people. So, I think that it's possible that because he's getting a lot of attention, maybe he's able to make some gains. But at the same time, I could imagine lots of people who voted for him because they liked Maxime Bernier, they liked the Bernier family, not liking this discussion, and maybe he loses support in Beauce. So, I mean, it's still their best chance, I would say.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't bet on it. But no one quote me.
and also, I remember breaking down the results 2 years ago. I think the next best result for PPC was 6%. I think nobody else than Maxime Bernier and one other broke the 6% barrier. So where are they going to win seats? And also it's in Quebec where the PPC is the lowest according to the polls. So Maxime Bernier, no, he's not going to win.
My cat is chirping a little bit around, so if you hear her, that's her fault. Right. While we're talking, we're talking about where the PPC could have an impact. Let's move to Ontario. I currently have them at around 6%, and the riding I think where they got second best was Nipissing to Miskaming, but that's because they had a candidate who was, I think, a former mayor in the area, so he had some personal appeal, and he's not running again for them. So again, it's a question of the people who voted for them last time, not necessarily the same profile as the people who are voting for him this time, right? So, so anyway, what do you think about in Ontario? I currently have about a 5-point gap between the Liberals and the Conservatives. And to me, that means we're not going to see a huge amount of change.
Yeah, well, here's the thing, though. I correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Liberals won Ontario by 9 points. Is that correct?
Yeah.
9 points. And so if they win by 5 or 6, that still splits some votes. That's still that flips a few seats. But last time in 2019, I got burned by the NDP in Ontario. I had the NDP winning, I think, a dozen seats. And I believe the average was around 20%. And in the end, they had 18%. And that 2%, that underperformance of 2% for the NDP cost them about 8 seats. So, I look at Davenport in Toronto. I look at a bunch of very close races between the Liberals and the NDP. And I figured you have to favor the Liberals in those close races because of the ground game, because of the demographics, who votes for those parties. But maybe I'm galaxy brain this stuff. I don't want to overthink it sometimes. I look at the numbers and I don't want to put too much of my biases into this. But I see the Liberals winning a majority of seats. Earlier in the campaign, 2 weeks ago, I don't think I would have said that. It was really close at some point when the Conservatives peaked and when they were polling at 36% in the country. Now I have my average right now is 66-43. So it's still a pickup of, I believe, 36. So 7 seats for the Conservatives. So it's tighter, but the Liberals still have the edge. What do you think?
I think this is the place where we have maybe the bigger differences, because I have the Liberals at 72 and the Conservatives at 36. And again, I have the NDP quite high. I have them at 13. And maybe they're not winning some of those seats that, look better for them in Toronto or Northern Ontario. And because of that, their number comes down and maybe the Liberals win those, but the Conservatives overperform in the GTA and win some ones from the Liberals. But the thing that I find is an issue for the Conservatives is that, there's lots of seats in the GTA. We talk a lot about the GTA, but a lot of them were won by pretty comfortable margins, right? Those seats in Mississauga, those seats in Brampton were not really very competitive. And that's 11 seats right there. And, even if the margins have shrunk by 4 or 5 points, a lot of those ridings were won by 20.
That's true.
So, that whole area stays red. And, there's a chance for the Conservatives in the ridings north of Toronto. That's where they have a good base.
Yes.
But I'm not sure if they break into Oakville and Burlington and that area. I'm not sure if they, how well they can do, because, if you saw the Nanos poll that they put out with the GTA numbers, not really great numbers for the Conservatives.
No.
So I feel like they might be, because if you're basing it on where they are in the polls right now, their numbers in Ontario are more or less unchanged from the last election.
Right.
So it's kind of looking at places where the Liberals would drop behind them. But I'm not sure if there's that many.
But if the NDP goes up to 3 points compared to last time, you don't win a Windsor, you don't win a Hamilton. Right. But then again, we could say the same thing. I was looking at the local numbers for the Niagara region, a place very dear to my heart. I worked there. That's where I learned to speak English, the Niagara region. The PPC is high in that region. It's not high to win a seat, but I saw a few local polls that had the PPC at 10 or 11. So
I've heard anecdotally that there's lots of signs out in the Niagara escarpment.
And so suddenly St. Catharines, that I normally would have said, okay, this was a really close race last time, the Conservatives should be able to pick it up. Now I'm not too sure because of the PPC.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an issue for them because even in a lot of those ridings, like a Richmond Hill or something like that, if the PPC has 3-4 points, that's and maybe a lot more than that. That could end up making the difference. And in some of those ridings, like you said, like a riding like St. Catharines, look at some of the Kitcheners, look at London's, places that maybe the Conservatives could pick up. The PPC might end up ruining that for them.
Yeah. And well, something that the Liberals have been complaining forever of the NDP, the Conservatives will feel the pain here. So what do you think of the Greens in Ontario, my friend?
The Greens, look, the thing is with the Green Party, if they're going to win seats, it's going to be because of whatever is happening local, because their polling numbers are awful.
Yes.
They're at 3% in Atlantic Canada. You actually have polls now that sometimes put them at 0, because it's so hard to find a green voter in Atlantic Canada. And in Ontario, they're also at about 3%. Now, I don't think Annamie Paul can win Toronto Centre.
No
I think that'll be too. The Liberals aren't tanking enough. They would need to be doing very badly.
Yeah.
The question is Kitchener Centre, and you know what? I have no clue. I have no idea what's going to happen there, and nobody does. Maybe someone has done a poll there, but I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm not even sure that the Liberal candidate Sait will finish 4th. He might finish ahead of that. Who knows? Lots of people might have already voted for him, and they didn't know he was not. He's on the ballot.
Yeah, he's on the ballot. Yeah.
I don't know if Liberal voters in Kitchener Centre are going to get the message that they have to all get back behind one party. And so if they end up splitting 3 ways between a phantom candidate, the NDP and the Greens, it looks like a Conservative seat to me.
Yeah, that's a fair point. The Green candidate finished second with 26%. Greens always say, buy locally, right? Again, the local campaigns matter far more than the national campaign because the national campaign is a disaster. So his baseline from 2 years ago is 26%. If he goes up to 31, 32,
wait, he has to hold his 26.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm guessing he will hold it much because again, local races. I mean, has he lost a lot of those partisans?
I don't know, but tell me this: a month ago, was he at 26?
Probably not.
Right, and so now all of those people who left him have to go back to him, and then he has to gain from the Liberals. I totally can see the Greens winning this because of the local dynamics, but I also think it's going to be a mess. I think it'll be a mess.
I even forget what you can just check my website. What do I have? I have a toss-up Conservative, NDP, and Green. I have a 3-way race.
That sounds fair.
Okay, that'll be fun. I love 3 races. So.
All right. Why don't we move on? Unless you have more to say on Ontario, we can move on to the Prairies.
Well, it depends on where how you draw the GTA, but according to my map, there's 30 seats in the GTA plus 25 in Toronto. That's 55. Yep. The last 2 elections, the Liberals have won 49 of 55. And the Conservatives cannot win without piercing that armor. They have to go through. They don't have to split it even ways, but they have to get some in there. When those polls open, we'll look at Quebec, of course. But if you see that the GTA still is between 45 and 50 seats for the Liberals, it's lights out. It's Liberal minority, or maybe more. We'll see.
And here's a point to think of, and it'll apply for everywhere else. But if the Conservatives aren't winning seats on election night, they're not going to win them when the mail ballots are counted. There's going to be the same kind of dynamic. It might not be as dramatic as the United States, but there will be the dynamic that I think that the Liberals and the NDP are going to win the mail ballots. So the Conservatives aren't going to pick up seats as more votes are counted. They're going to lose some. So if they're already behind in a Richmond Hill, if they're already behind in a King Vaughan, they're not going to win it. And if that's happening, they're not picking up those seats. I don't think they're winning a plurality.
Yeah. No, you're right. They would have to cause many surprises to win the plurality at this point in the race. At least.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it could still happen. But anyway, let's go to the Prairies, Manitoba and Saskatchewan. I think I still have them glommed on together. But why don't we start with Manitoba?
Manitoba, I have one interesting seat. I have only one.
Okay.
Can you guess which one?
Winnipeg South.
I have Winnipeg South Liberal.
Wait, let me see. Wait, I'm looking at them now. Kildone and St. Paul. Charleswood.
Charleswood. There you go.
It's Charleswood. Of course, it's Charleswood.
It's a long name. Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, and Headingley. So I have this as a toss-up between the Liberals and Conservatives. It was won by the Conservatives last time, so the Liberals seem to be doing okay in Manitoba. Maybe not so much in Saskatchewan, but from the polls that we saw, they seem to be holding on. So what do you have in this province?
Yeah, now that I'm looking at it, I think that's the only riding I have that isn't changing from the last election. And that's one of the ones where the PPC vote, I think, matters a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It was one of their like marginally better ones last time.
Yes.
Although I think it's because they had a former MP. Was it
Former
Stephen,
MP?
Stephen Fletcher?
His name escapes me, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, some of the polls have had the PPC at 10-15% in the prairies, including in the Abacus poll that was out yesterday,
right,
or on the Wednesday evening. So I feel like that's a riding where you could have the Liberals and the Conservatives both at 33%, 35%, and it's whatever the PPC gets that makes the difference of whether it's the Conservatives or the Liberals who win it.
Kildone and St. Paul could be interesting. It should go to the Conservatives. They won it by double digits last time. But again, as you said, that PPC vote. I mean, Mr. Pallister did not really help the Conservative brand in the last year and a half.
No, though he stepped down, maybe that helps.
Maybe that helps. So I have 6 seats for the Conservatives, 5 for the Liberals, and 3 for the NDP. Total 14. Yes.
I think I have the same thing. Although I think I might have the Liberals ahead in Charleswood. I actually, when I look at it now, it's a 0.03 gap between the two. So let's not pretend that matters.
Very tough.
Saskatchewan. I've gotten a lot of questions about Saskatchewan.
All right.
So there's the rural ones. The question to me is, how many does the PPC break double digits? Maybe the Maverick Party. Do they end up doing some decent numbers? But aside from that, there's the Northern riding, which I think is one of the ones where you and I cannot call it.
No,
I feel like that is such a local dynamic. It's a majority Indigenous population. They have Buckley Boulanger, who was an NDP MLA for a long time, running now as a Liberal. I don't know what's going to happen there, and I'd say it's just a toss up, just out of a purely subjective kind of viewpoint.
Absolutely, and it could. It's also a huge territory, so the turnout could be even lower than it is usually. The Conservatives had 42% last time. The NDP finished second with 28, Liberals with 27. I spoke a lot with many journalists, local journalists there, and many of them told me 14 out of 14, all Conservatives. It's going to be some close races, but the Conservatives are winning every single seat. And I'm not sure that's the case, but they seem pretty confident about it. And the only one they mentioned that maybe was this one, Desnete, Mississippi, Church or whatever. I wonder
if the NDP could win Saskatoon West. But that's more for me based on maybe some earlier numbers in the campaign where the NDP seemed to be doing okay in the prairies. I think that is a possibility. And again, if the PPC has a huge chunk of the vote, maybe that helps the NDP there, because there's not going to be many vote splits on the left between the Liberals and the NDP, right? This is a riding where and again, this is just my little numbers. They don't mean anything. This is one where I actually have the PPC ahead of the Liberals. So there's actually a few of these in Saskatchewan.
I have them tied. It's entirely plausible. I have them tied at around 10% each. The Conservatives won by 8 points last time. So, I mean, it's possible. I think that's also a part of Saskatoon where the provincial NDP did well in the last election. So it's possible, but I don't know, man. The big blue machine in the prairies, it's going to be tough to bet against. I know it was NDP in 2015. I know that, but
well, you mentioned it though, an 8-point gap. It's easy. I can imagine the NDP holding their vote and the Conservatives losing 8 points to the PPC.
It's possible,
and maybe that's how they do it.
And that's if that happens in, let's say, a 10 or dozen ridings. They're going to talk about that a lot after the election, won't they?
Yeah. And in the Saskatchewan election, there were a few ridings that flipped because of the mail ballots. So because the NDP beat the Saskatchewan party on the mail ballots and they lost the popular vote nationwide by a margin of 2-1. So it just shows this, we might not, I mean, I feel like when in the US election, everybody was talking about it, but this time no one's talking about it, or at least it's not as much as they should.
Well, the province that had the most mail-in ballots was BC, and I don't think many seats flipped after that. Maybe because the NDP was just overwhelming in that election, but maybe that's why we don't talk about it much.
Yeah, well, and in BC, the NDP won the mail vote when I broke it down.
But did they win it by a greater margin than the?
Yes.
Oh, they did, huh?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Wow.
So the BC Liberals. So we don't have the same. It's not going to be like 90-10 like it was in the States, but
Right.
in some of these close races. All right, let's move on to Alberta.
I love Alberta. I love me some Alberta because right now what's going on with Jason Kenney, it's gonna. I mean, I think Maxime Bernier announced that he was going to Alberta today, and so I had the Conservatives winning 32, 31, maybe 33 seats in the province. They have 34. But then the PPC has candidates, I think, in close to every riding. I don't want to say every riding. I'm not sure, but
they're only missing in Calgary Centre. It's the only one.
Okay, so 33. So if Maxime Bernier goes there and there's a lot of anger on the right, maybe a few of them can flip. And we could have a return to 2015 when the Liberals won 4. Is that possible? What do you think?
I think that I do expect the PPC is probably going to get a bump out of this, and maybe they end up in double digits in Alberta. And in some of these ridings, I think the NDP picks up potentially the Edmonton-Griesbach riding, and I think the Liberals can take Edmonton Centre, they can take Calgary Skyview, but I'm not sure about the other ones because Edmonton Mill Woods, that was Amarjeet Sohi. I'm not sure how much of that they can hold on to. And Calgary Centre, that is the one where there is no PPC candidate. So maybe that makes it harder for the Liberals to pick it up. And then after that, I'm not sure where they pick one up. That's how I would lay out the field. The
locals that I spoke to said 33 Conservatives, 1 NDP, and many close races, but they don't materialize for the Liberals. But that was before Jason Kenney's announcement of the vaccine passport and all of that. So I mean, if it flips 2 points, 3 points, that could be enough for the Liberals to win a couple of seats. So
yeah, I think some people are sometimes biased towards the status quo, especially in a province that always seems to be dominated. So yeah. Oh, sorry, making noise here. My cat is trying to. She is not cooperating. Anyway, I think Alberta is really going to be the interesting one to watch. Well, actually, it's not going to be the interesting one to watch, but I'm really curious about it because of what the PPC is going to do. And if in the end it ends up being a very close election, the Liberals might be very happy they win 2 or 3 seats in Alberta.
Yep, absolutely. Or let's say they do very well in the East and they're hedging towards very close to a majority, and it's the Alberta seat that pushes them over the edge. Oh, it's going to be, my goodness. I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying I like chaos and I like, so it could be fun. It could be fun.
Yeah, but also, well, I mean, we're in this just to have good storylines. That's all we want.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What's the point? The sun's going to explode one day and everything's going to be destroyed. So let's have fun, right?
That's
all right. BC.
Well, hey, we should the North.
The North.
What do you think about the North? How do you approach it?
I just approach it I use the national swings, and of course the uncertainty in my model is inversely proportional to the population and the average turnout. And so usually you could have an uncertainty of plus or minus 6%, sometimes 7%. In the North, it's going to be closer to 10%. I think that's that's a scientific thing to do, simply because we do not know. We don't have local polling. The local polling that we could have would be really unreliable. And there's a low turnout. So who shows up to vote? I have Liberals. I have the status quo right now. Liberals winning Yukon and Northwest Territories, and I have the NDP still winning Nunavut, even though Miss Kakak, I think her name was, is not running again. But the uncertainty is really high, and the people that I talk to say all 3 are toss-ups. So yeah.
I also just kind of use it based on the national trends. So, and the fact that the polls haven't shifted all that much nationally since last time, it means I also have the status quo. But people out in the North, your vote matters a lot more than those of us in the South. So, okay, BC.
BC is a mess.
It is a complete mess. So So this was the update I published on Thursday. I had the Conservatives at 30.2 and the NDP at 30.1, and the Liberals at 25.8. So they were the only ones that were putting a little bit of a gap. To me, there's scenarios where any three of the parties win the most seats.
Really?
I think.
Wow.
Yeah. Less likely that the Liberals do it, but because my high range where I'm not getting crazy with the ranges is 14 for the Liberals, and my low for the Conservatives in the NDP is 12 and 13. Technically, you could just have a three-way split in the vote and a three-way split in the seats.
So last election, Eric, it was 17, 11, 11. 17 Conservatives, 11 NDP, 11 Liberal. Right now, I have 16 for the Conservatives, 13 for the NDP, and 12 for the Liberals. So it looks like status quo. It's just that the numbers fluctuate so much in BC, and of course, there's a big difference between Metro Vancouver and the interior. And Vancouver Island is a completely different animal, as you know. I have the Liberals third, but they have a higher ceiling than the NDP in my model. They could go as high as 18, but their average is 12. But the Conservatives should not lose most of their rural seats. I mean, those should not change hands in theory. But who knows? I'm interested to know what you think about the Green Party there.
Yeah, well, because they're now at about 6%, so they're about half the vote they had last time, and there's a lot of seats that they don't have a candidate in the Lower Mainland, and a lot of them were really close ones last time.
That's right.
So where does that vote go? Because in some of those ridings, they're Liberal Conservative battles, but maybe out in BC, it's more an NDP Green kind of split than a Green Liberal. I don't know. So I'm not sure. I agree. It is a bit of a mess because there were a lot of three-way races last time, and the polls haven't shifted too much this time. If anything, they're suggesting it's getting closer. So yeah, what role does the Green Party have in those ridings? What role does the PPC have? To me, BC is a complete toss-up, and because of all the mail ballots, which are greater number in BC, I feel like we'll find out what's going to happen in BC on like Thursday.
I have Elizabeth May winning or riding, and of course I'm in Montreal, so of course I'm far from there. I spoke to some people in Victoria, and they, it's just she won by such an overwhelming amount in those elections, and so the Greens would really have to completely crumble everywhere. They did, but the local races matter. And a question I'm wondering, and that's for after the election, of course, if Elizabeth May is the only MP for the Greens, does she go back at being a leader? I'm guessing not, but there's going to be pressure. And Paul Manley, well, he won because of a split vote. I seen some local polling that shows he's still competitive. But he's gonna need some ground game because the NDP and the Conservatives will also be competitive in that riding. Yeah,
I agree. Elizabeth May is that would be shocking if she lost. Though not impossible, but it would be surprising. And for Manley, I feel like you can't rule him out, despite the fact that the party seems to be doing badly otherwise. But also, those the polls that are done at a riding level, they can be unreliable. So I'm not sure. He did kind of buck the trend a little bit, I think, in 2019, if I remember correctly, but or at least he certainly did with the by-election win. But I'm not sure if they. But here's a question for you: more likely that he's elected or that they win in Kitchener Center?
I have a good feeling for the Greens in Kitchener Center. I think the local candidate matters a lot, and I think some of those Liberals will be far more inclined to support the Greens than other parties in Ontario. The Greens are not a menace to the Liberals. So if one of those two is elected, I would say Kitchener Center.
All right. Okay, so I think we've done the table. We are not going to make predictions, but why don't we finish with this? So right now, in my probabilities of winning, this is again from the Wednesday update, I have 72% chance the Liberals win the most seats and a 28% chance that the Conservatives do. Where are you at, just in terms of winning the plurality?
Right.
Or at least the most seats.
My odds right now, 63-36. So
okay.
yeah, a bit. I think I have the Conservatives a bit higher than other aggregators. So about 1/3, 2/3.
Okay.
Right now. So.
Well, we're not
Okay.
too far apart, and it's hard to quantify what these actually mean. So,
what about majorities? What do you have? What's your odds of majorities?
I have a 12% for the Liberals, 1 for the Conservatives.
Okay, I have 16 for the Liberals, 2 for the Conservatives. But
okay, so twice as much as me for the Conservatives.
Yeah, but thing is, that's the thing. The Conservatives, I looked at their map. I could get on board for a plurality. I can go on the map and say, okay, they're going to win this, and they're going to win the close races. I simply cannot see a majority Conservatives. My model says it's possible, yeah, but the thing is, they would have to win all the toss-ups that they already own and all the toss-ups that they don't own that they're playing. And that rarely happens unless the polls are wrong. And again, at the federal level, yeah, there's sometimes regional disparity, like the Alberta last time they missed by 9 points for the Conservatives. It's really rare that federal polls are really wrong. So
yeah, because they could be off by 2 or 3 points, and that would be a pretty big. That would be not a insignificant miss for the national polls, but I think the Conservatives need a 5, 6, 7 point miss in order to be in majority territory, and that's just not. I mean, Mark, we'll regret this afterwards, but that's just not going to happen.
Hey, I'm Brett Chang.
And I'm Jay Rosenthal.
And we're here to tell you about Canada's top
and only
daily business news podcast.
It's called The Peak Daily, and every morning we get you up to speed on the need-to-know Canadian and global business stories.
And we do it without all the jargon that can make business news a little
dull?
Dull, exactly.
And did you mention we do it all in just 7 minutes?
6 minutes if we fast forward through all of your dad jokes.
Well, I prefer to call them rad jokes, Brett.
See what I mean? Come for the daily business news, stay for the dad jokes. Join us and thousands of Peak Pals every morning to start your day smarter. Find the Peak Daily wherever you listen to your podcasts.
All right, Eric, you want to play some over-under?
Yes. Okay. We've already been going for a while, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, I guess. But so yes, the idea is that we're going to give a number and a thing, and we have to choose either the over and the under. But you can't choose the actual number, right? So it's got to be.
No, I use decimals. So.
You use decimals. Okay, I don't, which makes it more complicated. Why don't you go first? You can do a first one.
Okay, I'll start with this one because I think it's funny and it's okay. 1 million votes for the PPC. What say you?
How much did they get last time? 600 or
last
something?
Last time they got 294,000.
Oh boy, okay, yeah.
So just to if the turnout is the same as last time, and it probably won't be, but you never know. If the turnout is the same as last time, that comes out to 5.4% of the vote. So 1 million votes for the PPC. What say you? Over under?
I will say I think
if you hesitate, that means the line is good.
I think it is a good one. I'm going to say under, but just by a hair. I bet like 950. They get something like that.
I kind of agree with you. I think if the polls are correct, they're getting more than 5% of the vote, but their turnout could be down. And also, some of these PPC supporters may have a surprise when they go to the voting booths and learn that you have to wear a mask and you have to comply with the sanitary measures, otherwise you get kicked out. It's the rules by Elections Canada. So I'm going to go under, but I think it's going to be close.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That is because the rules are, it's not that Elections Canada is setting the rules, but it's whatever rules are in the place where you're voting.
Right.
So if there is no mask mandate in some areas, then you don't need to wear a mask. But if there is, then you have to. That's a good point. That might have an impact on turnout and will probably make for some awful stories on election day. So thanks for that. I hadn't thought about that. Okay. Here's the simple one. Now I'm not using a decimal point, so it does make it more complicated. You have to choose the over or the under on this one.
Okay.
One seat for the Liberals in Alberta.
Oh, so not 1.5 or 0.5.
No, it's either they don't win zero, they win zero, or they win more than one.
Okay. Okay, so 0.5. Okay.
No. It's one. It's one.
One.
Do you think they'll win 2 seats or more, or do you think they win 0 seats?
Oh, that's a tough one, Eric. I
hadn't thought about using decimals. That's a good one though.
Yeah, that's how the rollers. I think I would push and say exactly one, but if I have to choose between 0 and more than one, you know what? I'm gonna go with more. I'm gonna go over. I think Skyview. I think the Liberals could surprise in urban Calgary. Their provincial government really has not helped in recent years. Maybe that doesn't sway a lot of votes, but I'm going to go over. But this is a tough one.
Yeah.
What do you say?
A few days ago, I probably would have taken the under. But now I think after what Kenny did this week, I think the over is more likely at this stage.
Okay. So we seem to agree so far. Let's see if we'll disagree on this one. The number of seats for the Bloc Québécois. And now, again, when you do an over-under, if I say 55 seats, of course, you slam the under. The game here is to find the line that will make you hesitate. Last time, they won 32 seats. So I will set the line at 32.5. 32.5 seats for the Bloc Québécois. What say you? Over, under, and why?
I'm going to take the under. I think that
under?
Their numbers seem to be capping. And if they can't reach more than 30% of the vote, I think that doesn't mean they pick up seats. I think that the Conservatives might be able to pick off maybe 1 or 2 from them, like the Beauport ones that I talked about. And I think that the Liberals, maybe they lose one if the Bloc gets a good result. But I'm having more difficulty seeing them make gains. But I don't have an issue seeing them do better than we thought and getting up to 31, 32. I'm having trouble seeing them at 33, 34.
Okay. Well, maybe my line was not okay. Well, I'm going to go under as well, but for the same reasons. But if I set the line, okay, let's say I set the line at 29.5. What would you say?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be tougher. I think with the last little boost they got, I maybe would take the over at that point.
Wow. So, okay. So Eric Grenier predicts between 30 and 32 seats for the Bloc Québécois. So, very good. Very good.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Okay. Let's see. What else do I got here? Well, while we're in Quebec, let's say, I'll do I hadn't thought about the decimals. I'll do a decimal for this one.
Okay.
10.5 Conservative seats in Quebec.
They have 9 that are rock solid. Will Richard Martel fend off the Bloc Québécois in Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. That Saguenay region is really sovereigntist, has been for decades. And it would have to win either Beauport, Limoilou, or Trois-Rivières. I think they'll get Trois-Rivières, so that's 10. I'm going to go 10.5. I'm going to go over 10.5 for the Conservatives in Quebec.
All right, just to be controversial, I'll take the under because the Conservatives have always been talking about making these breakthroughs in Quebec, and they just can't. They just haven't. In the last couple elections, they're always at 16% of the vote. And I think I feel like at this stage it's put up or shut up time, and I'm saying they're going to fall flat. 10 seats. Right. That's where they end up. So the under.
We disagree on something. All right, I have another one for you. Let me just pull up my numbers here. The number of NDP seats in Ontario. Now, they won 6 last time.
Right.
Right now, my average says 11. But we talked about perhaps not them underperforming their votes. So I will set the line, number of NDP seats in Ontario. I will set the line at 9.5. What say you?
I'm going to regret it, but I'm going to be bullish. I'm going to say over. Ooh. I think, I bet you that in some of these ridings in Southwestern Ontario, like Essex, the Conservatives are really hurt by the PPC. The NDP vote there is not like a young vote. It'll turn out. That's true. And they pick up seats like that. In Northern Ontario, the Ontario NDP did well up there. The Liberals aren't seemingly as strong as they were last time in Ontario. That vote shows up. So I think that gets them to, let's say, 9 or 10. And then maybe they win one in Toronto, maybe, or Hamilton. And that gets them up to 10. But okay. I think in general, I think the NDP is setting up to be disappointed. Just because I just don't, the vote just isn't very good at turning out. And the strategic voters get peeled off. The young people don't go in as much numbers as the pollsters give them in terms of their weighting. But I do think in Ontario, they pick off a few Conservatives, a couple of Liberals, and they get up to 10.
All right. Okay. You know what? 9.5, I will take the under. I got burned last time with the NDP in Ontario. My projection was almost perfect except for them. So for spite, I will take the under for the NDP in Ontario, under 9.5. So we disagree a second time.
All right. Now here's one that I'm going to not use a decimal because I think it makes it more challenging.
Okay.
Number of green seats, 2.
Oh.
So is it that they win 1 or is it that they can win 3?
Well, thing is, what if they do win 2? Can I push?
No. What does that mean? I'm not a bettor. I don't know what push is.
Push means I say exactly 2. When you don't use a decimal, since it's possible that they win exactly 2, I have the option saying over, under, or push. Push means
no, you can't do that.
I can't do that.
It's a dilemma. You have to come down on one side or the other.
That's right. No, you're right. You know what? I'm gonna have to go over. I think they keep the 2 in BC and they win Kitchener. And you know what? Maybe a big long shot surprise. They still win Fredericton. Although I don't believe that at all. But you know what? Something unexpected is gonna happen in this election. This could be one of them. So I'm gonna go over. I say 3 seats for the Greens. What do you say?
I kind of agree with you, but I think I'm gonna just take the under because I feel like 2 is likely. I feel like they either can win Manly's or Kitchener Center, but I have doubts that this is an election that goes well for them and they can win both. So that to me makes me say that it's more likely they win 1 than they win 3.
Right.
So I think because I'm like you, I think they probably win 2. But yeah, I think just the balance of stuff, I can see it not working out well for them.
If they actually do win 2, this one is a tie.
Yeah, I guess so. All right, do you got any more? Do you want to? I have one that I'm going to finish off, but then
let's do one last one.
Okay.
Okay. Conservative seats. Oh no, we already did Alberta. We already did Alberta. Okay. Conservative seats in Ontario. You said you had them at 36, right?
Yeah.
They won 36 last time. So that means that according to you, they're not making any gains. Net gains, at least.
Yeah, net gains. I think I have the Liberals losing some to them, but the NDP picking up some from them.
Okay, that's not a challenge because I have them at 43. So maybe that's the big difference here between our models. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna yield to you. What's your last one? I'm
okay. Listening. All right. The time before the next election, 18 months.
It's going to take a while to set the winner, huh? You say 18 months. Okay, so that would be a winter of 23, right? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, wait. It would put us in March of 23.
March of 23. Alberta is going in April of 23. 18 months. I'm gonna go over. I think if it's another minority, it's gonna be a longer one than this one.
Really?
Yeah. Because the Liberals will have a close debt to experience if they do win. The Conservatives, if they do win, they might not have a dance partner for a while, but Stephen Harper was able to make it work for a while. And there's still the pandemic, and there will be very hot budgets. The fact that the Liberals lost so much ground early in the election because they called the election, at least that was part of the reason. So March of 23, I think I'll go over. What do you say?
Just because I want to explain the alternative scenario, I'll take the under.
All right, go ahead. I'm listening.
So I'm imagining the Liberals get reelected, but they lose seats. The party is kind of hobbled, and everybody kind of recognizes that they're not going to win the next election. The Conservatives, I think, probably eat their leader alive and replace him with someone that is going to be more PPC friendly. I think that I think the base of the Conservatives is going to take the lesson that we tried to go to the center and it didn't work and it hurt us. So that means we got to get back to our true principles, and they elect a more conservative leader to replace Aaron O'Toole, who is going to be a lot more gung-ho. The NDP gets a decent result. They're still thinking that Jagmeet Singh is very popular, and maybe the third time will be the charm. And the Bloc, I don't know what the Bloc does, but so in that scenario, they get a budget passed next spring because no one wants to go that soon. We start to believe that the pandemic's over again next summer, and and in the fall, the opposition parties believe this is the time to take this government down. Trudeau has stayed on for too long. He should have stepped down and been replaced by someone earlier. Now's the time. They force an election in the fall, and so we have an election in the fall of 2022.
All right, so you say under. That's a very interesting scenario. I like that.
It's plausible. I'm not saying I believe it, but it makes sense to me.
May I add to that story a little bit?
Sure.
As long as we're going long anyway, but I know we're almost done. But the next election. So let's say your scenario comes out. I say in the summer, Trudeau figures, you know what? I've been doing this for 7 years. I'm done.
He takes a walk in the sand.
Takes a walk in the sand. Christopher Freeland becomes the Liberal leader, and she faces the Conservative leader, Leslyn Lewis. And we have two women facing off. And the Conservatives realize that, yes, they really like Leslyn Lewis, but she doesn't speak French, and they get destroyed, and we have a Liberal majority.
Maybe. I mean, while we're in this alternate reality, maybe it's Poilievre who becomes the Conservative leader, and he can perform in a French language debate. So that's true. He was good on Radio Canada. He was good actually. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I don't know. Oh wait, here's one. Okay, and this will be the last one for real. Over under of the.
I have a last one. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Over under of the amount of leaders who resign by the end of next week. I'll put it at 1.5.
Do we count Bernier?
Sure.
Okay, 1.5. Next week. I under just Annemie Paul. And she won't even resign. She'll stay on until they boot her out. Do you say over?
I can imagine Aaron O'Toole, and I can imagine Annemie Paul, and I think that's it. So maybe I should have put a less of a timeline that resigns as a result of this election result in a decent amount of time, sort of like Andrew Scheer did last time. And in that case, I'm now sticking it.
He resigned in December, I think, right?
Yeah. So by the end of the year, let's say that.
Okay. Yeah. By the end of the year. Okay. No, that's reasonable. So Annemie Paul. Well, the thing is, let's say that Jagmeet Singh does really badly on election night. I've heard rumors that why not? He could join the Ontario NDP and face off against Doug Ford in June. But it's just politics fiction. If you give it until Christmas, I'll go the over. Yeah.
All right.
If Trudeau loses, he's out. And if O'Toole loses badly, his party won't tolerate him, I think. But who knows?
Yeah, I feel like one of those two, probably their last election, but we'll see. One of those two. All right, what's your last one, and then we'll finish it off.
No, I'm done. I was talking about Jagmeet Singh leading the Ontario NDP against Doug Ford, but that's it. I just want to say, Eric, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. Too bad we have to have an election, and it'd be more fun if we could just do this instead. All right. Well, thanks very much, Philippe. It's always a joy to talk to you and to really kind of delve into this stuff with someone who thinks about things the way I do, why don't you tell people, well, you'll be on election night? Because maybe if they want to catch you, that's where they can find you.
Yes, so I will do stuff for CTV over the weekend, CTV Montreal. You will see some of it on CTV National, but on election night, I will be on Nouveau. This is a Bell network. It's like the French CTV that they want to compete against Québécois. So I'll be on Nouveau, pointing at maps and pointing at numbers and being there until 1 or 2 a.m. until the election is decided or not. But in the meantime, please go to 338canada.com. The site is free. It has ads. I apologize for the ads, but it has to pay the bills. So that's where I'll be. And Eric, I want to plug your site because I think it's great. I read all the articles. I don't comment because I don't do that. But your website, The Writ, is really great. You do a great job. The visuals are great. The writing, of course, is great because you have a lot of talent for this. And I really encourage everybody who's listening to this to go to your website and get a membership because it's worth it.
No questions and answers this week or rundown of the polls, so let's just get straight to the last election in our review of recent federal election campaigns as part of the Every Election Project, the 2019 federal election, held on October 21st, less than 2 years ago. After 4 years in office, Justin Trudeau's Liberal government was on the ropes. The SNC-Lavalin affair was just the last in a series of missteps or scandals that had sapped Liberal support. Going into the final summer in 2019, before the fixed election date, the Liberals were trailing Andrew Scheer's Conservatives in the polls. Jagmeet Singh, who like Scheer was named leader of his party in 2017, was struggling to have his NDP break through, and some polls had the New Democrats running even with Elizabeth May's Greens. Yves-François Blanchet, named Bloc leader earlier in the year, didn't give the Bloc much of a bump in the polls over the summer. By the time the campaign kicked off officially in September, the Liberals had pulled nearly even with the Conservatives in the polls. They seemed to have some momentum, but that blew up when photos emerged of Trudeau having worn black or brownface on several occasions in his past. That stopped the Liberal momentum in the polls, but it didn't reverse it. From that point on, during the campaign, the Liberals and Conservatives remained deadlocked, as neither party could gain ground with voters. The French language debates, however, helped boost the Bloc Québécois and sank the Conservatives' hopes of making gains in Quebec. The English debate boosted Singh and the NDP, and the combination of these two factors made a minority government almost inevitable. In the end, the Liberals were able to hold on to a plurality of seats despite losing the popular vote to the Conservatives. The Liberals emerged with 157 seats. That was down 27 since the 2015 federal election. They took 33% of the vote. That was down 6 points. The Conservatives won 121 seats, a gain of 22, and they gained 2 points to end up with 34% of the vote. The Bloc Québécois, they jumped from 10 to 32 seats, whereas the NDP dropped from 44 to 24, and their popular vote fell 4 points to 16%. The Greens, they were able to pick up 2 seats, and they gained 3 percentage points across the country, ending up with 7% of the vote. And of course, the People's Party under Maxime Bernier, Bernier did not win his seat of Beauce, and the party captured just under 2% of the vote nationwide. Now, the Liberals won Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. But they suffered big losses out in Western Canada. They lost 10 seats combined in British Columbia and Alberta. Ralph Goodale was a casualty in Saskatchewan. They dropped 3 seats in Manitoba. They also dropped 5 in Quebec, 4 in New Brunswick. But the reason that the Liberals were able to hold on to a minority government was that their vote held up pretty well in Ontario. They only dropped 1 seat from the last election. They also only dropped a seat in Nova Scotia, 1 in Newfoundland, and they kept their 4 seats in PEI. They did have big drops of support across Western Canada and as well as in Atlantic Canada. They had swept the whole region in 2015, but their vote held up in Ontario and Quebec, and that was really the difference for the Liberals. The Conservatives won British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. This is where they made their big gains out in Western Canada. 7 seats in British Columbia. They were up 4 each in both Alberta and Saskatchewan, and they also gained 3 in New Brunswick. This was really an opportunity missed. They only gained 2 seats in Manitoba, they only gained 3 in Ontario, and 1 in Nova Scotia, and they actually dropped 2 seats in Quebec. While they took 69% of the vote in Alberta and 64% in Saskatchewan, they were down 2 points in Ontario. They were down a point in Quebec. There was no greater Toronto area breakthrough. And because of that, the Conservatives just couldn't make up any grounds in the seat count. This is why they were able to win the popular vote, but not win the most seats. The NDP, the only province or territory they won was Nunavut, They just suffered big losses in Quebec. They had 16 seats in Quebec in the 2015 election. They dropped down to just 1. The Bloc rose to 32% in Quebec, and they were able to win lots of the territory in Quebec that they had lost to the NDP back in 2011 and the Liberals in 2015. The Green vote, it jumped to about 12.5 percentage points in British Columbia. They were able to hold on to Nanaimo Ladysmith on Vancouver Island, a riding they'd picked up in a by-election, and they spiked to 17% of the vote in New Brunswick and 21% in Prince Edward Island. They were able to get a breakthrough in New Brunswick with a win in Fredericton. Things seem to be going in the right direction for the Greens. People's Party, they only topped 2% of the vote in Alberta and New Brunswick, and as I mentioned, Fournier did not win his seat. Scheer held on to his leadership, but he eventually resigned after elements of his party didn't support him, and he announced his resignation in December. Elizabeth May also would step aside shortly after the election. Now, the minority parliament managed to survive, but the Liberals were not recovering from the election result and were still neck and neck with the Conservatives when the COVID-19 pandemic struck. But Liberal fortunes improved, the Conservatives chose a new leader who looked vulnerable, and the Greens were falling apart. The political situation looked pretty good for the Liberals, and here we are today. Well, that'll be it for this episode of the Writ Podcast, the last regular episode before the polls close on Monday. I'll try to have a bonus episode out for subscribers to the website at some point in the early hours of Monday to go over the final polls of the election. On Monday night, I hope you'll join me for my Election Night YouTube special. It'll be starting at some point after 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and will go all night. Some friends and special guests will be stopping by during the live stream, and it should be a lot of fun. So surround yourself with various devices, point one of those to my YouTube channel, grab a drink, and settle in for what could be a long night. You can find the channel by searching The Writ Eric Grenier in YouTube, and I also have some links on my site and on my Twitter account, @EricGrenierTW. Okay, hope to see you there on Monday. Until then, get some rest this weekend. Be sure to vote on Monday if you haven't already, and I'll see you soon.